Jay Leno. He used to tape in here. Now a guy named Jimmy Fallon is doing a very popular late night show called I think it's called The Late Show, actually. Is it called The Late Show? No. Letterman's is called The Late Show, isn't it? I don't know what it's called. But the Jimmy Fallon, very popular guy. Saturday Night Live. He used to be on Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live is taped in this building. The NBC News, Dateline NBC. Over on the corner is the only building that did not sell out to John D. Rockefeller. Imagine being the richest man in the world and somebody saying no to you. You can't have this building. And so, or you can't, you can't have this building. So he had to design 30 Rock with this building in mind. This building now houses a very popular bakery called Magnolia Bakery. And Magnolia Bakery was popularized in an episode of Sex and the City. And it popularized the love of cupcakes in New York. This is not the original one. The original one is in Greenwich Village, but this is a branch of the very popular Magnolia, the little tiny building at the corner. So now guys, when we get off the bus, maybe I see you have some of your lunch boxes on the floor. Maybe we'll find a trash can that you can get rid of your garbage if you don't want it. We want to keep the bus as clean as possible, and it's more pleasant for you when you ride back to the school. Also, I'll be telling you periodically where we drop you off later on tonight is the same place where the bus is going to pick you up, and we're dropping you off in an area that has great shopping. Okay, and I have to tell you something, there's no tax on clothing under $110 an item. Okay, so if you buy boots or coats or shirts or sweaters, no tax as long as it's not $110. And we're going to head over to 7th Avenue and take the left on 7th. Hit through Times Square. Great. Guys, if you look over to the right, you'll see the entertainment center of Rockefeller Center. It's called Radio City Music Hall, and they are most famous for their dance troupe associated with them known as the Rockettes, and they have a very famous show there called the Christmas Spectacular. But if any of you guys watch the Grammy Awards on television, or the MTV Music Awards, or the VH1 Awards, when they're in New York, they're most frequently over at Radio City Music Hall. And Radio City Music Hall was originally built as a film palace, but is now predominantly a concert hall. We're coming into the neighborhood that you guys will recognize most from movies and television. It's a place with all the neon lights and the glitz and the excitement, and it's called Times Square. And Times Square gets its name from the New York Times, the premier newspaper of New York City and the United States, and they moved into this neighborhood in 1904. This neighborhood used to be known as Longacre Square, and when the New York Times moved into this neighborhood, it became known as Times Square. And this is the site of the most famous New Year's Eve party in the world. And this is a place where on December 31st, around 1 million people gather to count the last seconds of the day, and there's a big crystal ball that comes down the flagpole in the center of Times Square, and we're going to see that in just one moment. So guys, over here we can see the building with the Toshiba sign and the TDK and the Chevrolet and the Budweiser screen, and we can see 2009 on top of the building. That's the building where the ball comes down, and this is the first year we've ever kept the ball on top of the building, and that ball was made in the Crystal factory in Ireland, the Waterford Crystal Factory. How do you feel, Greg, about the change of traffic pattern with closing down Broadway? Oh, you're kidding me! Oh, wow! Yeah, oh, wow! Well, it's nice to see you again. Over to the right is the TKTS booth. This is where people, see all these people lined up over here? They're waiting in line to buy half-price theater tickets for tonight's show at 8 o'clock. And this is the TKTS booth. This is actually the Broadway Theater District. Over to the left is the Times Square Information Center. You can get all kinds of information about Times Square over here. There's usually a very famous character who sits in the middle of what's known as Duffy Square. He's known as the Naked Cowboy. And some of you might have seen his picture before. I also want you to know Broadway. Look at on the other side, there's no traffic coming down the street. And this is an experiment that started on May 24th. Used to be that we used to drive all the way down Broadway over here, but Broadway is now closed to traffic and it's just for pedestrian walkway. And it's an experiment. If they like the experiment, it will become permanent being a pedestrian walkway and no traffic. As tour guides, we're not that crazy about it. It's not too bad today. They can get really, yeah. Over to the left is Planet Hollywood, a very popular theme restaurant based on the Hollywood movie industry. That's the place that has the real piano from the movie Big that Tom Hanks was dancing from. Over to the right, just above the Bank of America and the Elements and the Billabong store, are the MTV studios. This building houses the headquarters of MTV, and this is where they used to tape TRL, Total Request Live. Over to the left is the Toys R Us store, and there's actually a 4-story Ferris wheel. See the Ferris wheel in there? Going around? Over to the left across the street is the studio for Good Morning America, that other popular morning news show. Across the street to the right is the Hard Rock Cafe in the historic Paramount Theater. The theater used to be very famous for being the Frank Sinatra's favorite spot. Over to the right, Bubba Gump's, based on the movie Forrest Gump with Tom. We're mentioning Tom Hanks a lot today. I gotta give it a across the street to the left, that big huge screen is the world's largest outdoor video screen. That's the NASDAQ site. The building is also known as the Condé Nast building. And Condé Nast is a big publisher of magazines. And I always say the real person, not Meryl Streep who played the devil who wears Prada. You ever know that movie? The Devil Wears Prada. But the real woman that character was based on, a woman named Anna Wintour. She publishes Vogue magazine in the United States, and she's the person that person's supposed to be about. The devil who wears Prada works over at the Condé Nast building. We have a question? Go ahead. Oh, Jay Leno, yeah, he's going to have his own show on every night of the week at 10 o'clock, prime time. Because he had a contract, because they didn't want to lose Conan O'Brien. Yeah, but he's still going to be on NBC. Yeah. Over there is 42nd Street, the main street of Times Square, often referred to as the crossroads of the world. 41st Street to the right is the last of the 39 Broadway theaters. This is the Nederlander Theater, most famous for being the theater where Rent was being performed. Over to the right is Parsons School of Design. If you know Project Runway, starting Heidi Klum, this is where they tape Project Runway. Over to the left are two symbols of the garment district. You can see the big button with the needle going through it and the bronze statue of the garment worker over there.